On April 11th, 2026, dPlus KIA and their mid laner, ShowMaker Sue, successfully completed the 22nd Northern Expedition by defeating Gen.G 2-0 in the 2026 LCK Spring Split. This victory was highly significant as it ended a 21-game losing streak against Gen.G that lasted over 5 years, 1,707 days. That is part of this week's theme, history making, Wolf, as it is dPlus KIA getting the job done. That is where we're going to start this week's episode of Let's Cover Korea. dGon here alongside Wolf.
Expedition
Wolf,
22. It's they got to get that studio working on it, and like happy ending for ShowMaker. It's all great. I'm sure like there'll be some twists along the way. Canyon will leave the team. That'll be like a big Act 2 thing they can put into the game. It'll be awesome. I cannot wait to see ShowMaker speaking French. It's gonna be rad.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what his abilities will be. That, of course, was from our friends over at Inven. Thank you, Inven, for the work that you do as well from the journalism front. But it is where we want to start, just because every time, Wolf, they show the graphic on LCK, they're doing it again. They're trying to claim the top. And, of course, the Northern Expedition storyline comes from the ancient kingdoms, the 3 kingdoms of China. One of the kingdoms trying to war the North. They kept doing it until eventually their kingdom fell because they never were able to beat them. And Gen.G have had that winning streak forever, for just such a long time. And it was something you could rest your hat on since ShowMaker won Worlds. And it didn't matter who the mid laner was, didn't matter who the team was. He just was unable to do it. And now Career and Smash get their opportunity for their first time in the LCK, not LCK Cup, but LCK. And they're 1-0. It's huge.
Remember when we were talking about what we thought we did know, what we weren't sure if we knew, and what we didn't know? And we had Gen.G in the kind of like, we're not sure if we know, and then I was kind of pushing towards like, we don't know. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. Although I am very happy for ShowMaker to finally beat Gen.G after like 5 million years. And dPlus earned it. It was a 2-0. It was an emotional moment, I think, for everybody, especially dPlus fans, because everybody knows the meme. Like, you gotta actually, succeed, go through the Northern Front, like get that, climb that mountain, whatever the analogy that Cloud Temple is using for that dPlus Gen.G matchup. That he's weaved, and we've talked about it so many times. Yeah. And it was kind of like it started to be. It's always been a thing on the Korean broadcast, but on our broadcast, it kind of really started a lot more recently. But even for Chronicler, he didn't call it that, but he was always talking about how like it's so close, they almost do it. So close, they almost do it right. And we had the classic dPlus win game 1 convincingly to give hope, and then stumble a little bit, barely lose game 2, and then get dunked on in game 3, and like. It didn't happen. They just won, 2 games. Now, it wasn't clean, and there were some comebacks that happened, and some really clutch plays from especially Career, who was on the desk with us, and he was like, yeah, as soon as I hit that double stun, I was like, this fight is won. We did it. It was really cool to hear from him. And that's like, that's the kind of thing that when you're a support, and you see those angles, and you see the setup and the CC. Sometimes it happens if you're a jungler that has like an insane CC setup, right? But sometimes you just see that moment, you're like, I think I just won the game. And he definitely had that moment. He looked a lot more confident this week than we've seen in the past. All of this to say is that Gen.G don't look great. Like they look like a top team, but they don't look like themselves, right? They don't look like the team that is incredibly strong, that could do whatever they want, that can win the game off of like a bot lane dive where they get 1 kill and you're like, okay, the whole game is over, by the way, because now the bottom lane is destroyed. Keen's winning top side by himself with no resources. Chovy's gapping mid lane, and Ruler got 1 kill, and he has a snowbally 2v2 let down there, and Canyon can now just invade the enemy jungle, and like GG, it's a 3,000 gold lead with 1 kill at 12 minutes. Like, see you in game 2. Like, that's not the Gen.G we're watching right now. We're watching Canyon fumble a lot of leads. We're watching a lot of really weird team fights that aren't as clean, I think, as they need to be for the squad. They're giving a lot of comeback angles. They're sloppy on the setup. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from dPlus because it was a good win, and like Gen.G is still a really strong team. Don't get me wrong. I think they're still probably our second best team right now. But it's like, even though dPlus beat them, right? But it is kind of puzzling that they can't seem to find consistency right now. And it makes you wonder about like all the things that we can't know, right? Because we can see the gameplay, we can see the drafts, we can see the CS numbers, right? What we don't know is how like Ruler's feeling going through all this controversy that's around him right now. How we don't know how it feels to like go 0-3 to G2 after having an incredible undefeated run in LCK. And you know, having all these expectations and pressures on you. Everyone's talking about, you know, behind your back, all the fans that don't like Gen.G are like, well, they'll bomb at internationals again, they'll lose worlds. Like, we don't know how much that weighs on these players, if it weighs on them at all. And when I was in Hong Kong, I told you guys that like Chovy had this different aura where it was like the confidence is there, it looks like nothing can shake him. And now I have to like walk that back and wonder what's going on internally in the team. Is it a time where they're trying to experiment a little bit, trying to be more flexible with their styles? Are they trying to push Canyon in a different direction because he looks really uncomfortable compared to what we've seen from him at his best? We don't know the answers to those questions, and I'd love to be a fly on the wall, you know, in the VOD review for what happens after the 0-2, but because I can't be, I don't know what happens next for Gen.G. I don't think people should overreact to this loss, but with KT in their current form, with T1 often bouncing back after a rough start, and I don't even want to say their start is rough, but it's not dominant. There's a lot of teams that challenge for Gen.G's opportunity to you know, end up being in first place at the end of round 2 when we go into Legend. Like, you don't need to be first place to have that MSI qualification go well for you, but I think everyone expected Gen.G will just come back to Korea. They'll still win in the lead-in, like they'll win the regular season round 2. When round 2 ends, we go to road to MSI, the MSI qualifiers, they'll be at the top. And right now it's like, well, there's a lot of other teams vying for that spot. KT looked great. dPlus just beat you. T1 could potentially beat you. Hanwha's on the up and up right now. So, you know, are Gen.G going to be our first seed for MSI? You know, that's the question we have to start asking.
You know, it's funny, Wolf. You're like, don't overreact. However, you forgot because you're like, T1's on the upswing. Gen.G, we don't know. Gen.G beat T1 earlier this week, man. They dismantled them. They dismantled them. So I think we still don't know for Gen.G. What we do know is that they are not the team from before. And I think this year is not a year where we have the things that always happen, right? Gen.G beat T1. No. That's not it either. Gen.G beat dPlus. No, that's clearly not happening anymore. KT, when pressure's on, they're gonna falter. No, that hasn't happened yet either. And to the point where if KT lose later, I don't think it derails the roller coaster. So I think with Gen.G specifically, they're just different because we've seen T1 do this. Well, they've got their ups and downs and then they'll figure it out at the right time. We've never seen this Gen.G struggle this much this early, especially with the fact that they kept the same roster. And that was what we were touting during the LCK Cup. And then they won LCK Cup, right? It's just, that's the team that I think we still don't know, but we know that it's different than before. And I don't think that's overreacting. We just have to treat them like other teams now. Treat them like other teams.
So much of LCK, and it's been this way since like Monty and Doe were commentating it, you know, back so many years ago, right? A decade ago, believe it or not. The LCK has always been held to like this insanely high standard because we won so many world championships. We were considered to be the best region. And we have always held our top teams like SK Telecom, Samsung, now Gen.G, at the time of a few years ago, Damwon, right, at the highest standard as well. So you put these teams on a pedestal because you know, like, these teams are not, you know, you can put G2 on a pedestal, right? Like, G2 has accomplished so much as an org, but they haven't taken home all those world's titles, right? And that's like why, you know, even though like we insanely respect G2, but if they falter or fumble at an international, you're like, well, it's happened before. The same way you could, you know, there's a bit of a trend with Gen.G for fumbling at Worlds, right? Like, people aren't surprised by that anymore. People would be surprised if T1, you know, lost to a Western team these days and fell out of Worlds early. My point being that this is kind of a trend we have with the LCK where, like, okay, we went 0-6 against G2 at first stand, and so everyone's like, oh, this is a disaster. Are these teams terrible? Like, is the LCK the third best region? Because we always have this insane expectation. That's always the way it is. And so with Gen.G, it's kind of the same thing right now. They're still an insanely good team. They were winning those games. Actually, they had winning game states in both of those games against D plus, and they lost the games. And yet, still, like everyone's walking away being like, "Is Gen.G bad now? I don't know what's going on." Like D plus, because it's the expectations that we have, right? We put these teams on such a high pedestal. We set the bar so insanely high for them that when they do occasionally go 2-2 at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, "Wait a minute, like." Must be bad team. I guess Canyon is int. It's like, well, I mean, like obviously they had a rough start, but they're still an elite team. If you watch the game with your eyes and don't just look at the post-game results, you know that this team is still insanely good. D plus is insanely good. We said this from LCK Cup. This is going to be an insanely competitive LCK year. And I know sometimes we say that every year, and it sounds like a talking point, a narrative point. We're like, I can't wait for LCK because I'm a commentator. I want the league to be, hype as hell, and I'm just going to say these words because they don't mean anything. But it's like, yeah, I can't wait. But like, I legit felt like when I saw BNK go to the finals, I was like, oh yeah, this season's going to be interesting. You know what I mean? Like this team could be the best team in the league. T1's not the best team in the league. Gen.G looks really good, but like, what's going to happen, right? Because T1 got upset by D plus, didn't even go to the finals, right? And so we knew all these teams are really good. We knew D plus is good. They showed it all the way back as far as Kespa Cup. We knew Career had some issues, but he's starting to figure it out. I think what maybe the real takeaway from this win for D plus and like a bit of a slump for Gen.G is that we just don't know who is going to be on top at the end. And that is rare. Like we normally are just like, all right, well, see you at the finals, T1, Gen.G, sometimes Hanwha. And KT never made the finals right before. Like they still might not. Like BNK made the finals for LCK Cup, which was an anomaly and the first time for their org. So that's exciting. That's fun. Now, if you just get, slammed 3-0 in the finals and it's a boring finals and it's like a little bit less fun, but the idea of it is very fun. And so if somehow Gen.G is like a middle of the pack legend team or a lower legend team, that's kind of interesting to me. I'm like, oh, that's not supposed to happen, but it's kind of cool. I know it's going to be pretty mentally taxing for those players who aren't used to not being the top dogs, though. So I am interested to see what happens next.
So just real quick, because it was such a big win, I wanted to talk what happened in the draft just to touch on it, because it does feel like this is a problem that Gen.G runs into, and it was ballsy, surprising drafting by D plus here, where the Pyke came out for Gen.G, Career picked Bard, went 0-0-13. He went deathless that whole series. He was 0-0-25, which is nuts. But the big thing to me that I remember from game one is that Canyon gets Pantheon. They get Pantheon Rise, like the no combo. This is the no combo that we were saying at the beginning of the week, where we're like, no one should ever get this. This is super OP. This is where Tom was like, for T1, interim coach Tom was like, we didn't have high priority on Rise, and now we understand. This is the combo. Maybe if you can add Jason there at the top lane. But they get it, and he gets an early gank and then does nothing for the first 3 Drakes. Just can't or doesn't find an angle to break this lead open. And so D plus do a good job playing around the global ultimates of Rise and of Pantheon. They don't make anything happen until the Drake fight where everything goes bad and D plus get control of the game. Career has that moment of, oh shit, they're on top of each other because Pyke hooked me into nothing, and Ezreal and Pyke are on top of each other. Boom. Caitlyn traps down, they win the fight, and then they take control of the game. It just felt puzzling because this is the issue that we've seen with Canyon, where it's like he can't find the angles, doesn't make the angles. It doesn't quite happen there. And that game, specifically game one, was the one where I'm like, this is such a Gen.G problem. And props to D plus for matadoring, not giving them an angle. But I feel like since this keeps happening to Gen.G, this is a Gen.G problem more than a D plus strategy.
Yeah, I think that the Pyke pick was where things started to go a little bit awry for this draft, because you have this front line for the Ezreal, which is always like, you're playing into Jarvan. Okay, you have a nice ability to set up consistent damage, and the Rise is tanky enough to where like you can kind of play 2 DPS here around your Cassante and it should be fine. But then you don't have an engage outside of like Cassante goes super deep into an Anivia, Bard, Jarvan, Gnar, who's chipping away at the health bar. or the Pantheon goes in and stuns somebody and hopefully survives long enough and then the follow-up damage is there. So you just end up with like awkward fights where Duro can't do much, and like his ability to hook there, or his attempt to hook I should say, is what like cost him the game in the first place, right? That's what gave Career the in, because he's like, oh, we're trying to fight for space here on neutral. If Canyon goes in, right, like he's gonna die and he's not gonna be able to hold on to Dragon aggro. If he goes in, like he's gonna get burst down. We can't fight through him. We need to hook somebody and get an insta pick basis how they thought they needed to fight that. And Ruler's like, I got the burst damage to back this up. We'll pull this off, but it didn't work. And so, the draft was not unplayable, but the game state was too even. It was too close to play it the way that Gen.G was playing it. And Shio popped off like in the series, right? He had a great Gnar game. He had a really fantastic Renekton game in the next game where they had so much CC and setup. I mean, I think I was telling you, if I'm not remembering incorrectly, like that I looked at the draft for Gen.G in game 2 and I was like, if they lose with this draft, we have serious questions about, what's going on with this team. And then they lost with this draft because this draft has everything, man. It's got Seraphine with both a Xin Zhao and a Zahin to set up the encores, to get extra shielding, right? To be they're already incredibly difficult to kill, frontline champions. And then you've got a Yunara on the back of it, and they got a Renata comp? I mean, good luck. It's not going to be able to stand up to this. The Annie engage doesn't have, follow up outside of the Wukong in most situations, because it's just going to get, like, the Wukong is just going to get burst down or just rooted by Seraphine, it feels like, right, in these situations. And then Canyon got gapped by Lucid. He got a little bit gapped by him in the early game in game 1, but, like, Lucid just ran circles around him on Wukong in the early game before, he's not even an early game champion. So Canyon had problems in this series. Duro had a Pyke in this series, which was, again, like, who knows if it's his choice or not? Probably a big part of the choice, I would imagine. And Dplus just found the ins, like with, drafts that were nothing flashy or special. Like in game 1, they had the Anivia counter pick, and then they had the classic Jarvan, high tier pick, the safe Gnar counter pick to the Cassante. And in game 2, they just went Annie Wukong, like old Rise Group style, might as well just send it and see what happens. And then they just won the game, I think that, like, they just showed, weirdly enough, I feel like Dplus showed better fundamentals in this best of 3. And that's just something that in the past with Gen.G, you'd be like, well, they had either an off day or they had a bad draft read, is usually what would happen with a loss, like that KT upset where you're like, okay, KT had a good read here. Gen.G were a little bit caught off guard by this. Like, upsets happened. Gen.G aren't perfect. But here it just felt like, if I took the nameplates off or something, I'd be like, well, this isn't Gen.G that lost that game, right? Like, there's no way this team would make those mistakes. It just looked like Dplus was just straight up the better team. And like, it was close and it was interesting, but Gen.G got outclassed by Dplus. I would not even predict Gen.G to lose to Dplus if this was like the end of round 1 and we're moving to round 2 tomorrow. I would probably still predict Gen.G to win. But like, on the day, Dplus were just better.
Yeah. And remember, this was after, for those of you that watched the matches, and if not, I'll explain. Earlier this week, Dplus KIA had a big match. We all were like, this is an important match against Hanwha Life Esports. We're like, Hanwha Life, they're kind of reeling. I don't know what they're doing, but maybe they got it together. And they got absolutely, and here's my analytical terminology here, turbo fucked by Kanavi. Like, Kanavi played Jarvan, was like, I'm going to win. And he did. And then he was like, you know what? I'm feeling good. I'm going to play Kha'Zix. And just wrecked the shit out of Dplus KIA. It was a terrible game for everyone except ShowMaker. Like, Shiwu was getting ganked nonstop. Lucid had not, like, he was a victim of Kanavi. Career couldn't do anything. It was rough. And so they would walk up against Gen.G and be the same type of prey. But then you look at what Canyon was unable to do. And with the Pantheon Rise. Like, it's just
it
questions.
It definitely was probably an awkward ride home. I just like, if they had just won first stand and they had looked incredibly bulletproof, hadn't lost to KT, after winning the tournament in Hong Kong or winning the LCK Cup finals in Hong Kong, then you'd probably shrug this loss off. But it's like everything else that's going on, It's it's the kind of start to the year that's going to make a few gray hairs sprout, right? With everything that's going on with Ruler, with everything that's going on with the loss that you had at first stand, with all the expectations that were already put on you because you had such a strong LCK Cup, which a lot of people say doesn't matter. You know what I mean? People are like, okay, LCK Cup is not important, and so I'm just gonna pretend like Gen.G didn't win because my team didn't win, and it doesn't matter. Like a lot of people do that, right? And I even talked to people at Gen.G who were like, yeah, it's great that we're in form right now, but this is like not the most important time to be smashing people and winning everything. You know, like everyone's aware of the fact that winning in Hong Kong was cool, but actually there are bigger goals and larger goals ahead. So for Gen.G, I don't want to overreact, but again, I want to tease the idea that maybe it is KT's time to be the most dominant team. Like maybe that will stay the case. Maybe dPlus take this win and build a bunch of momentum, and maybe they could be a top 2 contender. I mean, I would not predict that right now, by the way. I'm just saying, like, it could happen. And also because dPlus beat Gen.G after also beating T1 in LCK Cup, are dPlus better than T1? And then dPlus lost to Hanwha. Is Hanwha better than what we thought? It's pretty interesting, actually. I'm not trying to say that transitive property is just automatically how we should place these teams, but it does make you feel like anyone could beat anyone, and whoever's going to find that consistency first will be the one that stays at the top of the standings, right? And KT, by the way, they found it. Yeah, they have that consistency already.
We've got 5 teams at 2-2. Not all 2-2s are made equal because Gen.G does have a +1 game score because they did beat KT Rolster once in that series, lost to 2-1. But everyone else, it's a big clump there in the middle, and that includes a Hanwha Life Esports, who has had a pretty easy strength of schedule. They still have to play Gen.G and KT, but then they get Kiwoom and Nongshim and DN SOOPERS. So it is a parody, a league full of parody, except the other team.
Oh, I thought you were saying
that made history.
The LCK, which would be true as well.
Not parody is joke, but parody is in everything is equal. Yes, thank you, Wolf, for that.
Sorry, I'm a father now. I just have to, we just have to do the dad jokes.
Check it off the bingo card.
Okay.
I made a bingo card for everyone listening at home. It'll be on. It'll go up on LCK socials tomorrow. So you probably could use it here. I don't know. We'll see. Absolutely fantastic. The other team that made history is KT. This is the first time they've started 4-0 in 9 years. So the KT roller coaster is going up. They had the fake the fake battle of the undefeateds. This was definitely the not all 2-0s are made equal, because then Nongshim lost both their games this week and they got bodied by KT. But KT then go and take care of business. They made the bro game look pathetic. And that, to me, it's not that they were not expected to be bro or whatever. Well,
like
it was
a recent game.
It was, while you're casting it, it felt like we were doing like PR almost. Like we're trying to make it be like, Brion, it's not that bad, Brion. Like it was.
KT are so
rough.
good. KT are so good that it's totally fine. Like KT are so good that like, what could we do? It's not our fault. They're just so perfect and amazing. Because that's what I was doing on the cast. I was pretending like he was a robot and trying to make it seem like that. Like we just didn't even want to cast the game. Like, and I kept making like disparaging jokes about Hanjin. Like, will they be able to get to the halfway point on the map? Like, they can't get a kill. They can't get an objective. Maybe they'll be able to like get to the equator, and we'll say like, all right, good job. Like, it's like I have a 9-month-old daughter, right? So like you got to start small. Like the goals are really simple. Like, can she crawl across the floor? Can she clap? And things like that. I'm not asking her to get a triple kill on a dragon fight early, like BDD, but like casting, he was like able to clear a wave under turret with 3 people there and survive and like flash away. That was good. That was good on him. He got out of there. But like KT were so ahead. They were so dominant. They had such an aggressive comp. Like this, it's almost like Gen.G's soul was transferred to KT. Like, this is the kind of performance you want to see out of Gen.G.
Yes.
Like, this is what we were seeing out of Gen.G, where there were, every time Gen.G plays, you're like, okay, just skip it. Even if you're a Gen.G fan, you're like, I don't even need to watch this one. Like, it's like, you know, we just dunked on him and it's boring. And Chobi has like another Flame Horizon, and Ruler has like 4 kills in the early game because we dove repeatedly and we won the 2v2 and we got the quirky matchup and it was easy. And now we just run over the game. And like, yeah, that's kind of what KT did, except Bro made a lot of mistakes in that series. But this is the first time since, 2017 that KT actually has a win streak at the beginning of the season. Even in their 2023 run, where they went 17-1, they didn't have the streak early at the beginning of the year. So it's looking good, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me that this team is actually this good. Like, they don't have the players that are good enough to make this. Like, Perfect is not. I don't trust him still. Like, he's not good enough for this. Aiming is not good enough. An effort? You trying to tell me effort? Like, Peter, I was like, okay, yeah, Peter could be a world champion. Like, I can kind of see it. Yeah, Peter was pretty close. Effort, man, no way, not a chance. Effort's actually going to be like undefeated 4-0 after basically not even playing the game competitively. There ain't no way, dGon. You cannot convince me this is real. This is why I was starting to say, like, there's robots going on and shit. Like, this can't actually, like, I'm getting pranked. This whole year is just a prank. Everybody knows I love KT. There's pranking me. I'm in a reality TV show. There's probably hidden cameras all over this room right now. Like, isn't it? After they won the 4th game, Wolf started to figure it out. Like, he's going on his talk show and he's like, they can't keep it from me. I know you guys are scamming me. They're about to go on a 4-game loss streak, and it was Wolf. By the way, that was all just a joke. Gen.G does win, MSI, and they win the tournament, and like KT doesn't even go to the finals. Because how is this roster actually like bonking people over the head with like good macro as well, good team fight reads, swift engages? What? Like BDD, BDD, because of course they were good. But everybody else, you can't convince me. No way.
I don't know. It is, but we have to go with what we saw. And what I saw, it could have been any team. It just happened to be the Bros. But that was a one-sided shellacking that it reminds me of when Wadid's like, hey, you want to do in-houses? And I'm like, sure. And then that first game, this happens to me on whatever team I'm on. I'm like, why did I sign up to play with Wadid's friends when I suck ass and there's nothing I can do? And that's literally what happened. It's not even what happened to the Bros. It's what KT did to the Bros. They are active in their wins. They are actively doing this, and it is very exciting to watch. It is great for the league. It's great for them. It's great for BDD. And we'll see if they're able to keep it up. Strength of schedule, weaker this week. It was Nongshim, it was Bro, fake 2-0,
I mean, Nongshim
fake
was
1-1.
Though. At least, like, Nongshim got some wins over people before. Like, they looked better than Bro. They were kind of real. Next week, by the way, dPlus for KT, so that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Maybe that's where the streak ends, possibly.
If not, they play the Supers, and then week 4 they go into Kiwoom, and I don't know who's starting for BNK FearX. They might go undefeated. And then like the final of the round, and the final match of the round is against Hanwha. I know that I just took the roller coaster all the way to the end, but it just, if you're analyzing things, we've been able in the LCK to skip some of the analysis with our eyes because T1 does the magic shit, because dPlus have done the choking shit, because Gen.G beat everyone unless it's an international final called Worlds. And now, do we trust the history when some of these players are still on those teams, or do we trust what we watched? And it's, it is exciting here for KT.
There's so many things that you start to think about when you have a season start like this in your head. Like, at least for me as an analyst who's been watching this league for a really long time, but has been commentating it really closely, obviously, and been working with the league since 2021. Like, you start to wonder, like, is the LCK just deteriorating? Like, is it like, because I've seen in the past, like with other leagues, some players start winning everything, and you're like, oh, okay, well, no one's really able to keep up with this team or this player because like the health of the league has gone down. That's obviously not the case here, right? But we don't have a lot of new talent. We don't have a lot of new players coming in. Like Effort almost feels like he's a new player coming in, but he's not. But like you start to wonder, are all the old expensive players just too old and too happy with how much money they're making? But it's like I'm making all these like dumb fake reasons for like why is KT the best team in the LCK? Like, do the players just not care? Are they like gonna ramp up later? I sound like a fan, right? Who's making excuses for my team that lost. You know, I'm like, no, like we'll swing it around later. I mean, who cares about the first 2 weeks? It's not a big deal. Gen.G's like just warming up. You know, it's actually totally fine. And I don't know what it means, but I still don't trust it. Like you cannot convince me. You just cannot tell me that these players are the best the LCK has to offer. Like this is the one. You know, this could be our number one MSI seed that's gonna plow through with international competition. That's right. I'm telling you guys that it's perfect in the top lane. Who's gonna tell those kids to sit down? It's perfect. Who's gonna be like, Ben, step aside. I'm the best top laner in the world, motherfucker. It's me. And he's gonna do his little like hands thing. You know what I'm talking about? He's gonna do the perfect thing. And then we're all gonna be like, wait. And then we're all gonna wake up from the dream, and it's not gonna be real. And it's gonna be like, I don't know, dPlus lost the finals and like LPL won again, and we're like, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, that was pretty funny that we had this idea that KT was the best team. There's just no way. There's no way. Like you can't tell me, by the way, that Perfect is playing better than Keen this individually. You can't tell me that.
He is.
But like I don't know. Is he playing better than Keen? I don't think so. I still think Keen's the best top laner. You can't tell me that like aiming is better than Ruler. You can't tell me that. Like I don't believe I legit am probably the biggest KT fan that there ever is. I was watching KT Rolster before like League of Legends came out, okay? Like I know like that like sometimes I have these crazy KT biased takes sometimes on this show, but like there's no way you could tell me aiming is better than Ruler right now. There's just no way, like absolutely not. Is Effort better than Duro? No. But is BDD better than Chovy? Yeah. I could say that much. Like, is Canyon getting the same level of value that Cuz is in these fights? No. Like those two, I'm like, okay, they're the best in their role in this tournament, like easily. BD is easily the best mid laner. Like it's not even close. And I think Cuz is the best jungler. But everywhere else, I'm like, all right, but you guys are doing your jobs well enough that, and like the coordination and team fighting is good enough, like that. It doesn't matter if aiming might get caught randomly and leave us all puzzled, and we might all just be like, oh my God, how is this even real? But in team fights where he has the right setup, like he does his job, and KT just like they're just better coordinated and they have a better mid and jungle than everybody else. So I guess they can just win the whole thing. Is that what's happening, dGon? Don't trust them. I don't trust them.
I'm excited to keep watching. They already beat the Bros, so now I can go back to seeing how high it goes. Those were our two big history makers there in dPlus and in KT. Tears everywhere. LOL Park. It's been interesting. It's only been 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You were talking about best mid laner. Well, we did have a mid lane change as finally the VicLa experiment has taken a break. We don't know if it's a full-time thing or not. BNK FearX did tweet out. Okay, so this was kind of weird. Daystar comes in. That is the backup mid laner for BNK FearX. He's been listed as the 6th man on the roster for a while, but was playing in Challengers. And it gets tweeted by one of the journalists in the LCK, but no official tweet from BNK FearX. Actually, 50 minutes before the journalist tweets that Daystar is coming out to play, there's a tweet about VicLa saying, hey, let's congratulate VicLa on his 1,000th kill or something like that.
It's like 1,000 games or something like that.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was, but he hit this milestone. Please, let's congratulate him together. And it was like, what? What? That was weird. Is it like congratulations on your 500th game?
It's time for a well-deserved break.
It was a little lucky. But I will say, after that, when we got to see Daystar in the game, Valdez's boy Daystar, he did a really good job of running away when Pioshik was trying to kill his ass. He did it multiple times, and it was so funny. It was so funny where I was like, okay.
It was so good, man. It was like just watching that stupid game where like I was watching it and I was like, Akali isn't the one he would pick here because of reasons that, and then I explained the reasons, and then he's like, I'm slamming the Akali, and I'm like,
Akali
okay,
lock.
well, you know, it's it could be fine, and then he just like gets trolled by his jungler, like Raptor's flash on the Xinjiao, where it's just like, I'm trying to continue to make an impact in this game, and then he loses like all of his health and loses control of the lane. I'm like, all right, okay, it was not about Daystar, and
it was not about Daystar.
How many?
We tried to make it about Daystar. Yeah, we tried to make it about Daystar on the broadcast because it is funny that Daystar is coming in. VicLa has been the source of most criticism last year, and then was the source of most praise at the beginning of this year, and then, you know, kind of like a dud. I would put more on my boy, third team All-Pro vote receiver Raptor, who has played like shit. But it felt like BNK has had this team problem. It's a team problem. It goes from the draft where we're not giving the tools to Diablo to fucking Diablo around. We're playing way too much Engage on Kellen when he's the Enchanter guy, and we know that you can play Enchanter, but yes, Engage beats Enchanter, right? Like, I get it. So they're trying to force that stuff in there. And then there's the VicLa problem, and then sometimes Clear gives an oopsie. So it's felt like a team issue, and this time it does feel unfortunate, in my opinion, that VicLa is the one that gets changed and then they get the win. But he did do some funny stuff, like on the Akali, he took like that crazy 1v3 in the top side of the map and almost got the kill, set up the rest of his team to clean up. But that's what he did. He would take these fights that seemed like very That's Challengers Baby-esque, and then wouldn't necessarily get the kill, but bought enough time to allow the rest of the team to clean on up. He did the same thing on, it was Rise in game 1 on the bottom side of the map. They split the fight. BNK FearX beat the shit out of whoever they were killing over at the Drake, and then run down to the bottom side of the map after all that time was bought by Daystar, and then kill everyone, take control of the game, and win. Like, it happened in both games.
I am of the mind that there's, like, UCal mentioned this on the desk interview we did with him, and I am often of the mind that a lot of the time when you see subs like this, it's because there's been some internal scrims and kind of what Koreans often call like trialing, where basically Daystar was given the opportunity in a few scrims because the coaching staff was like, hey, like, VicLa, you're kind of inconsistent, right? Like, I'm sure they probably think VicLa's highs are better than Daystar's highs because that's what we all think, right? Like, we were all pretty surprised to see him come in. The same way we're all surprised to see Effort, right? And surprised to see Lazy Feel continuing to play. But what UCal said about Lazy Feel playing, and it felt like in some senses it was kind of almost a PR answer, but it felt almost rehearsed. Like, he was like, I know people are going to be asking about this, right? He was basically saying, TLDR, he does what we like to do. Like, he understands what we're trying to do here, and so he's the one right now. And it was like as simple as that. Didn't say anything disparaging about Gio or like Gio is bad or Gio is inconsistent. He was just like, Lazy Feel understands what we're trying to do, and like that's why it's him. And maybe that's the case for Daystar here as well. Like, BNK are like, we're trying to play aggressive through mid lane. Maybe Daystar didn't quite get the memo on Raptors like missed flash and all the silliness that happened around that one play on Akali. But otherwise, he was doing great on the Rise. Like, he was roaming, you know, he was getting prio and making an impact around the map. Like, he was doing a really great job on the Rise. His Rise performance was phenomenal. And they played through him with Kellen's Pop Blossoms and like his root that he had in the mid lane. And so maybe it's just the case that Daystar's hungry, he's young, like he's had his opportunity in the LCK once before. He did well there. He picked up POM. And now he's looking to come and do more. And they're just like, let's see how it goes, because he is a little bit more aggressive than VicLa. And when VicLa makes the aggressive plays, sometimes you're like, damn, it's your VicLa. And sometimes you're like, damn, VicLa, that you really messed up every aspect of what you were trying to do there. But the idea was good. So sometimes the execution misses. So I see why they want to test this out. It was against the DN Freaks last time we saw Daystar as well, when DN Freaks were really struggling. Supers are, by the way, 10th place. So, you know, this is a good place to Test the theory. If he starts again in their next matchup, what they play KT next week, but they also play Nongshim. It's a pretty tough week actually for BNK next week. It's not the toughest, but it's matches that you could realistically win. So you don't want to fuck around with these. You know, like you don't want to play Daystar if you're not sure yet, because these are matches you basically must win if you want to get into the legend group.
No. BNK played Nongshim and Kiwum.
Nongshim and Kiwum actually. KT is
so maybe it is the time. Maybe this is the time to get the game in and just
if the Kiwum match was first, I'd be like, 100% you play him a second time and see how it goes. Nongshim had a bit of a fall off, so I guess you could still play him there, but it's risky. I think there's probably a lot of discussion that's going on because Nongshim is again one of those matchups that feels winnable, but also it's losable and you need to win it. Kiwum feels like, in my mind, even with Lazy Feel, and we'll talk about them a little bit later, even with the resurgence there, kind of feels like that's a freebie. Should be a freebie for this roster. Like you should not lose that one. Daystar could do it, but I like how Daystar was implemented as a sub. Like they didn't sub him in the middle of the series like DNS did to Life randomly that one time, which was like nobody really enjoys that kind of substitution. It's not like KT using Paddock and like the musical chairs that we saw there with Duckdom early on in the year and like changing the supports constantly. Like
Trigger for Jiwoo. Yeah.
This and honestly, like even the way that we saw Lazy Feel implemented with like Jiwoo saying he's sick and stuff, but then like he's not playing the next week also feels a little bit janky and weird. But for this, in terms of the timing and like individual performances, like it all lines up for me. Maybe don't like tweet like congrats on 1,000 wins and make no other statement about VicLa and then send Daystar in. Like maybe that part didn't really hit. But everything else about it, I kind of am a big fan of it because Daystar is also not a player. Like when you sub Life in for Peter, it's like, well, what are we really doing? All this stuff happened with Ghost, by the way, like all the subbing between Ghost and Paulo. It's like, what are we doing? Like Life is the veteran player. He's been around longer, but Peter's also a veteran. Like, what's going on there? Is it like, we're going to pick a Life pick, we're going to play set? No, just going to play standard and still lose. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. Daystar is like this new guy where it's like there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of questions we have about VicLa right now. Daystar is somewhat proven in the LCK and his performance we saw last time around, so we know he's LCK level. Like, give him a shot and let him play the whole series. If they put VicLa back in after he goes 2-0, then I'm gonna delete everything I just said. I'm like, what the fuck are these people doing? I don't know. But like, if they keep VicLa in and he plays like even 2 more series next week, I'm like, okay. If he bombs against Nongshim and Kiwum, it really hurts BNK. Like I said, these are matches you really need to win if you want to consider yourself a Legend Group contender, especially with the rough start that they have. Like, you need to 2-0 next week. If they take the risk on Daystar and he loses and they put VicLa back in, I'm like, okay. That they gave him a real go, and they looked at real results. They did not just go, okay, one result is enough, and we're not happy with that. So give him some more time, and then I like this. I like this because I think for VicLa, too much of a heart monitor in terms of like performances for me. I'd rather see somebody that comes in, even if like the highs are lower. You know, if you hit like 80% of VicLa's best every game, that's better than VicLa, because VicLa goes, down to like sub 20 in his performances too many times.
VicLa second in the league in average deaths at 3.3, and was just, the heart monitor analogy I think is good because his CSD was like middle of the league, right? It was serviceable. Actually, he was 4th behind Chovy, Scout, and BDD at 15. So you would get those games where he took control, but then you would just get too many deaths, like just too many deaths. And I think Daystar did a good job of just not losing the game. He CS'd good. He did good. That's all he needed, right? And it was against Closer, who can find those angles against you, but he just did his job. That's all he needed to do. So Daystar in for BNK FearX. We'll see what happens next week. All right. Well, before we continue further here, Wolf, talk a little bit about some of the other squads and the struggles that they had. It's time to remind you about our friends over at PrizePicks. Now, the playoff push is heating up, and playoffs are around the corner here for PrizePicks. And there's no better way to cash in on the high-flying hoops action than PrizePicks, America's #1 sports picks app. Every bucket, every dime, and every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. So don't pass up your next shot with Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks, super easy to set up. Download the app. I did that over during football season. Now into basketball and baseball season, it's even easier to follow along with all the action. Now, Prize Picks offers the best way to get into the action on esports as well in over 50 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Choose from several titles across esports like Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Call of Duty, Valorant, and more. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick a more or less on a few pro player stats for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. PrizePicks offers all maps for every match, as well as stats like kills, headshots, first bloods, and many more. And on PrizePicks, you can mix and match your player projections from different titles. Combine your favorite Counter-Strike players with players from basketball or Valorant and much more. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LCK to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LCK to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Thanks to our friends over at PrizePicks. Okay. Let's touch on T1 here, Wolf, real quick. Just because I think they're still in the don't know, maybe no bucket. It's probably maybe no bucket. They go 2-2. As we said earlier, they got bodied at the beginning of the week and then win later on in the week against Gen.G and DN Supers, respectively. But it kind of went how we expected. I would just say that they looked so lifeless against Gen.G, and then Owner looked like such a gigachat against the Supers.
It feels like Owner is very inconsistent right now. And like for our standards, again, we always hold these players to like such a high standard, right? If I compared Owner to like Gideon, I'm like, oh, Owner is super consistent. Yeah, like he's like actually on top. Like he's insane. But like we hold Owner to this standard because Owner oftentimes for T1 is like the only person who's doing his job every day. And we're like, oh man, Faker's laning is trash right now, or like, okay, Doran / Zayas in the past, like, you know, Doran is struggling, Zayas is struggling, he's not winning the lane the way he's supposed to, so like we're having problems on the bottom side of the map, you know, et cetera, like, you know, Zayas needs resources. That happened a few times. Or we're looking at like in the past, Guma struggles last year, where even Smash came in for a little bit. Or you're looking at like you know, KIA is having a bit of an off time, you know, because he's transitioning from like KIA to me strikes me as a player who has an insanely wide champion pool. But it feels like he kind of gets into a groove with a type of support, and like it really gets into mastery of a meta. And if the meta shifts suddenly, like it seems like it takes him like a week or so to be like, oh yeah, let me go back to like my enchanter vibes. That's kind of like my feel for him. Like even if he plays like, you know, if it's not an enchanter meta at all, he'll play an enchanter against a weak team and look like God. But when he's playing against like real competitive teams, like sometimes it feels like he's just not able to. This is like my personal take, right? I know a lot of people who like are KIA worshippers will probably disagree with this, but I'm a KIA worshipper right now because Owner is not the consistent one on this team. It's KIA, in my mind, is actually the best performing T1 player right now. He looks good even in their losses. He looks good in every game. In my mind, it's FaZe that's the problem in the bottom 2v2, not KIA. It's FaZe that's really struggling to find his footing, and FaZe is playing like the opposite of like the way Gumayushi used to play. So he's looking for, you know, the min-max plays. He's playing hyper aggressive, or sometimes like it feels like a little bit timid because he knows that he made mistakes by overextending like earlier in the game, and then he's just like in his own head. It feels like it's hard to really quantify what's going on with T1 because you have 5 insanely god tier players who just aren't all playing the way that we know their potential is. It feels like these are players that almost, like, I don't know, especially with FaZe and Doran, it feels like they would do better on other teams. You know what I mean? But like we know that T1 with almost this exact same roster last year, like it played perfectly better, played so much better than they are now, and played so perfectly together. Like, oh, none of these players could work anywhere else. It feels like they're going through some sort of transition phase. I'm so by the way, insanely tired of people like blaming Tom/Coma for like all of the stuff that's going on because it makes absolutely no sense. Like I literally, when Coma was like, I'm going to take a break, everyone was like, that's right. Now we'll fix this team. I'm like, I think he's just taking a break. He's got some personal stuff going on. Like, I also don't think any of those drafts that you guys hated, he even like touched or had any hand in. Did you see that he was like not on stage or even in the coaching booth for some of those games? Like, people like I still to this day see like people blaming Tom for drafts when we know and have known since like before this show was even made, by the way. And then Monty and I have talked about this so much that you and I almost never talk about it, but like the drafting on this team is almost never done by the coaches. We know who the real coach is. We know who the shot caller is. We know who the brains of this team is. It's the greatest player to ever touch the mouse and keyboard in League of Legends and, you know, arguably esports. It's Faker, right? Like, he's the one who's often the ones making all these decisions, and each individual player has a say, right? It's not a coaching issue. I think it's just T1 have always been a team, in my mind, and, you know, I think most people would agree with this. T1 fans agree with this. Part of why they call it the circus, right, is that they kind of just are mind melded. They follow Faker's decisions, but often they make decisions so quickly they don't even shot call them. Like, they just know exactly how quickly when Faker's pushed too far up in a side lane, for example. I know we talk about this all the time, but Faker seems to be overextended. It looks like Faker's caught, but then suddenly all the T1 players are all there. They make the perfect engage. They make the turn happen. Why T1 is so, like, people always say, T1 Baron, ha ha ha, they're just randomly better than everyone. No, like, they actually have the best turns off Baron out of any team. They always have had the ability to understand how to prevent steals, to rush a Baron quickly, to turn off of a Baron because their shot calling is so crisp. Or again, sometimes they don't even do the shot calling. They just know how to play together off of a turn through Keria or through Owner so incredibly well. This feels like I'm not seeing T1 hit all of those like boxes, you know, where we're not seeing the macro reads. Like, sometimes Faker's pushed up and like the whole team's trying to come and then like they just don't get there in time, and, you know, Faker dies and we're like, oh, they thought they could do the thing that they always do, but they actually didn't get away with it this time. This is, again, in losses, right? Like, T1 still look really strong. The draft reads have also been really bad. Like, I think their drafts have left them a lot of the time kind of with, like, up a creek without a paddle. You know, it's like, well, how can you get out of this draft? Like, how can you get out of, like, these losing lanes? And then Doran is, like, in a lane where he's weak siding, but then gets solo killed, and you're like, ooh, that can't happen. You know, the draft can kind of work if he doesn't die, but if he dies, then it's also just like, oh shit, like this absolutely isn't going to work. So there's a lot of small problems for T1 that I personally think will eventually get fixed. I think they'll eventually figure out their read on this meta. Their drafting will get better. I think Doran will stabilize. I think Faker, you know, he has had some incredible games this season. I don't think he's the problem per se. He just hasn't been consistent. And Owner will find his consistency because, like, we know that in the past, this guy's been the most consistent player on T1. Some people would say Guma, but for me, like, in their dire moments, like, it has always been Owner.
Yeah. This series, or the Gen.G series, was the one where, because a couple things that showed. For me, it's one, Doran is having a terrible year. Like, he is not having good series when he just needs to be stable. I think he's had been the victim of a lot of solo bolos where it's, you just can't die. They shouldn't die there. Also, in that first game, it was the awkward rise. Are we going in? Or are we not going in? Because Doran got caught near the Baron pit. And then, like, they missed the Renata ult on everyone, so they're starting to leave. But then Owner went in, and then the Rise realm warped in late. So it was very, very not coordinated. So that one didn't feel very draft problematic. And then in the second game, it was Pantheon, again, a Pantheon game with a Galio where you want to try and get things going. Get the globals going, but Doran isn't able to get in position to allow the Pantheon and the Galio to come fight on in, and then they throw it all away at one Drake fight where they're not around their main source of damage since the Aurora isn't playing well in the Zeri. And it's these kind of things where I'm like, these don't, like, yes, draft is part of it, but this doesn't feel like a draft issue. This feels like not on the same page on how you want to play these fights out in moments where T1 have been masterfully able to be together as one, circus-like, as you said. It's I don't think it's due to a lack of trying. I do believe that it is, hey, listen to Faker, but now they're listening to Faker in different positions, or listen to Faker in, a gold deficit on the top side of the map. It just, it is frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to watch because in their wins, they look great. In their losses, they look uncoordinated. It
looks ugly.
And
it looks ugly.
Yeah. It looks ugly. It is ugly league.
I had my biggest issue with their drafting in the series against KT, and we've talked about that already, so I don't want to go super into it, because it's redundant at this point. But, when they were playing against the Supers, like, they had their own read. They played through owners Lee Sin again, and
yep.
I don't know how to feel about that. Like, when they're like blinding the Lee Sin or just like picking it.
Lee Sin's your win con. That's not good.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, well, he's really good at this pick. And it's like a one trick that you see in solo queue where, like, where it's like that guy's really good at this pick. And like, you just can't stop him. Like, he's so good at this pick. And he's like so super happy that Riot made it so you can't see like your opponent's like IDs, so people can't just like look up your OPGG and ban you. The problem is, like, he's playing the LCK. And like he's kind of known, like, he's a pretty recognizable face. Let me look real quick. So he'll be playing against dPlus. I think dPlus know who he is. Like, they will look at the roster card and they'll be like, oh, that's owner on the other side. He's a known quantity. We look up his champion pool. It seems he's been playing a lot of Lee Sin recently. They can ban the Lee Sin. I actually think you can afford these types of bans if T1 can't figure, like, especially in game 2 when some of the OPs are already gone, whittled down and fearless. If T1 can't figure out how to draft consistently and like just pick Lee Sin and owner will carry LoL is like your strategy in the short term, that's fine. Because he keeps winning and he's the best Lee Sin player in our tournament. However, if that stops working or it starts getting banned, like Bard was, by the way, like, KIA shaped this league in such a huge way because Bard was, wow, KIA is really good at Bard. He's the only one who can play that, and it got banned against every time. To everyone's like, you know what, that Bard champion, like, KIA is he's kind of inspiring me to play that a little bit more. That became like a completely standard and meta pick. Like, Lee Sin is popping up elsewhere in the LCK, and maybe it'll start being a little bit more relevant just because it's so mobile, has a lot of playmaking. It isn't constrained by a lot of the picks in the meta that are very relevant. But my point is that, like, eventually, KIA got his Bard taken away because people banned it against him every game. That gives you power in draft. But, like, I think in a game 2 where you're not sure what's going on and you don't know what the read is for T1, just ban Lee Sin and see what happens, I'm not saying that you can counter T1 by banning this, but I wouldn't call picking Lee Sin and popping off good drafting, but I think a lot of people are just like, well, they won the game, so it was good. And we'll see what happens later. Like, Israel and Nico has been really common. Like, they drafted that with owner on the Scion, like put owner on a tank. It all kind of makes sense, right? Lee Sin could be a ball carrier. Just looking at this draft again, like the composition they got, it's actually one of the better ones. And they didn't randomly pick Lee Sin. It made sense. But I want to see T1 like leading the charge in terms of the meta again. That's when they seem to be at their best. And right now it feels like they're kind of catching up and doing their own thing, which is fine. And again, I think they will recover. But it will make
quick
people
hits.
upset in the interim.
Yeah. Quick hits here, Wolf. As we start to close up this episode, one word for Hanwha Life Esports. Second place, 3-1, one word.
Improvement. They've been improving. Kanavi goes on his POM interviews and he's like, I'm trying to play towards my team style. I'm trying to like kind of adapt a little bit to them, which is a complete and blatant lie he did in front of millions of people because the rest of the team has just finally figured out how to play his style.
It's like,
and he has not changed even 1%. He has not changed even 1%. But you know what? They're figuring it out together with him. So it's actually cool. And they're turning what used to be like Kanavi is overextending to like, okay, this is just what they do now. They kill everyone all together. They don't farm the lanes. They don't play macro. They don't play reserve. They don't scale. And they win. And so that's okay. That's good. Yeah. Improvement.
Definitely not Kanavi outfit here. One word for the DN Automotive Supers who are in last place.
Failure. It's not looking good. It's not looking fixable. It's not looking solvable. It's just the team doesn't have a color, right? Like, it doesn't have an identity. It's like when Pyosik is your best player, and that's the truth, and you're like, yeah, he's the one we can rely on. I'm like, it doesn't function that way though, does it? And Closer he's constrained by his champion pool, right? Like, Dudu is inconsistent as hell. And then Peter and Duckdom, were they just passengers all along the same way Aiming and Effort are for KT right now?
Oh, no. We can't believe that.
No, I don't, because I said Duckers was elite, and he is. I think Duckers is actually elite, but he's just not playing like it right now. Duckdom has had such a crazy career arc where at times he's been like legit a top 380 carry in the LCK, and then at times, sometimes even in the same year, been a bottom 2 or like worst 80 carry in the LCK. It's crazy.
That was last year. Yeah.
But like, even like when he has Nongshim arc, he was like insanely good, one of the best Aphelios players in the league. To like, if Aphelios is banned, he's the worst player in the tournament. Like, he can't play anything else. You know, like, it's wild.
They need to figure out which one of Duckdom's lovers they're using at support. Again, Duckdom and Life spending a lot of time together over in FPX. And of course, Duckdom and Peter, the darlings of the bot lane for KT Rolster last year, who made it to Worlds. They got to figure that out. And then finally, not one word association here. Kiwoom DRX, man, and Nongshim. They are the big swingers, I'd say, of the week, right? You go from Kiwoom DRX, definitely last place. They look like shit. They have no hope. They have no anything. Rich doesn't know if he's playing League or HOTS. It was terrible. Time to put in Vincenzo, maybe. And then they sub in Lazy Feel for Jiwoo, which they did last week. They stick with him, so it wasn't just a sick thing. And they get themselves the win. And then Nongshim, they start the week, or last week, 2-0, and they look terrible. They look like they got tilted out of the server when Lehens just stopped forgetting that he doesn't need to engage all the time against KT, and then never got back into a groove against Kiwoom DRX. Those are the two squads. They played against each other, and Kiwoom got the victory against him. I just, for me, if you are playing against Kiwoom DRX, you have to punish the shit out of Lazyfield being a terrible, terrible laner. Like the worst laner in the league. Like Andol and Lazyfield are bad in lane, because out of lane, this dude's nuts. He knows how to dish out the damage. He knows how to play on the edge. You got, like, you know, a little Diablo in him and a win condition to play through, which Jiwoo unfortunately was not that in the first part of the season here, Wolf.
The first win for Kiwoom was against Bro, and I think that almost everyone would argue that Bro should have won that series.
It was the generous Giga Chads giving Kiwoom a lifeline.
They screwed up game 2, and then they were so tilted they like forgot how to play the game in game 3. And just like, it was a free win. And like, that was, I think that was kind of a moment where a lot of people misappropriated like success to Lazy Feel. He got POM as well. Like, people were just like, oh, I guess Lazy Feel is actually the one. I'm like, well, maybe Bro is the one that carried the win, because they threw really bad and it was actually horrible. I think most people didn't really most analysts didn't overreact to that win. We were like, okay, well, Kill won't beat Nongshim. I think it's Nongshim. Everybody just played better. It's the thing that we said with UCal, where you look at it and you go, well, he's trying to do like the kind of same thing that we're trying to do. And so you can believe that to a certain extent. Like, they looked a lot cleaner in team fights. They looked a lot cleaner on objectives. Nongshim made some mistakes. It was not Lehens' day. But you kind of look at it and you go, how did Rich suddenly become good? He's very far away from Lazy Feel, and they're not related. Like, their proximity to each other is like very far. Like, why is Rich good now? I think it's kind of more about the fact that maybe with Lazy Feel, they're able to just like the way that they talk about the game, the way they communicate about drafting is cleaned up. Maybe everyone's figuring out like their job a little bit better with how the the scrims were going, and they all got like restored confidence. They're playing to win and not playing to not lose, which it felt like a lot of the time they were doing, and they were really tilted and upset. I do think QM DRX, and I hate to say it, are still a very weak team. I don't think this team is going places, but I do think that at least they are able to play the game. Like they actually played the game. They played the game well. Rich played well. Like the players were professionals. Like they were just straight up professional players in that series against Nongshim. I know this is like such a weird thing to say, but in my mind before, they were just not able to be LCK level. Like they did not look like they belonged in the LCK. It was that rough. Like some of the solo kills that were happening to Rich were just like so bad that it was, I memed the shit out of him on the pre-show. I felt bad, but like, and then he gets POM, which is really funny. But like the way they were playing before there was no good news. Like even in with the win over Bro, like LazyField's laning stats were like abysmal.
Abysmal.
And we were looking at this like in the pre-show. We all predicted Nongshim. We were like, the top lane's a disaster. The other news is that the bottom lane is even worse. And so good luck. And as it turns out, they can play League of Legends together and get to the late game where Gio can carry on Kalista. So we'll see what happens next week. Next week their schedule is BNK and T1, so it's pretty tough. But I think reality will hit next week a little bit for KRX. I think we'll be like, okay, that was kind of cute when they played well that one time against Nongshim, but that's my take. I don't know if you have a different vibe. Like if you're feeling like this team is suddenly gonna take off and be a legit contender. Because for me, they look better, and that's good, but not good enough.
Well, I think to me it goes back to your point with the Supers. What is your color? What is your theme? Because the teams that know themselves are the teams that are doing well. And if it's Rich, just hold on, please don't die. And LazyField, let's get you the fuck out of the lane, then that's the way to go. And the way that they did that was that in their win, they played Willer to the top side of the map. I don't think Willer went to the bottom side of the map in the early game. There were no early ganks. There maybe were some covers, but no ganks. But they actively ganked the top side of the map to get Rich ahead a little bit. And they were able to do that. UCal was solid in the mid lane. And they're like, okay, well, LazyField and Andal are going to kind of suck anyways in lane. Let's just make sure the other part of the lane doesn't suck. So they went to the top side and played through that. So if they do that again, I like that. I like that kind of strategy. I like that idea. And so if Kiwoom can do that against BNK FearX, I can see them going on a 3-game winning streak and, torturing Raptor, who, again, is the kind of inconsistent, the wobbly part, in my opinion, the wobbly part of BNK FearX. Again, not Daystar. It's the vulnerability of that mid-top duo of BNK FearX. So, yeah, I see an angle there. Against T1, Doran's having a terrible year too. Like, there's a way, Wolf. Am I predicting Qum 2-0?
No, please, no.
You know what, Wolf? I got a lead. In predictions, which is what we're. That's
true.
All right,
that is true.
I can use a game here or two. I could use it on Bro against Nongshim, or I could use it against Qum T1 on that Sunday, and have all of the T1 fans be very mad at me because I don't have the ability to share my reasoning. Nongshim, real quick. Nongshim, I brought them up because they were on the losing side of Qum.
It's Taeyoon and Lehen's struggling. It is like, Taeyoon got caught a lot. They didn't play well. It's I don't want to say that I think Nongshim are suddenly bad. Like I think a lot of people are like, aha, I knew they were bad. They were not good. But for me, I'm kind of like, I think they had a bad day against Kiwoom, and also KT is really good. I kind of like the Nongshim BNK matchup, the first match on Wednesday is kind of epic. Like it's pretty. I'm pretty excited about that one. That one could go either way, right?
Yep.
I don't think that Nongshim are bad. I think that they just need to find that consistency with Lehens. And like Lehens is one of those supports. There are supports like Keria, right? There are supports like Duro, and Delight. I would say I would put him in this list where you're like, okay, you know what you're gonna get almost every time. You very rarely see these players have like a stinker game. And then there are supports like Beryl and Lehens, right? That like are that different archetype. I would put Life in this archetype as well, to be honest, where it's like when you have a bad game or you have a bad read, you go like 0-7 and everyone's like, how is this guy even in LCK? You know, like those are the types of supports, like the two different archetypes really. And Lehens is in the Beryl Life archetype where it's like on bad days, it's like, well, I guess Lehens is just terrible again, and then he'll come back and pop off the next week. So I don't want to make a sweeping judgment about Nongshim yet. I know you're ready to say they were bad the whole time, but I want to wait another week. Like if they go 0-2 to BNK and Bro, then I'm like, okay, sorry, you were right, dGon. Prediction god dGon right here is the truth and the way. But
I think this week I'm about to throw. I'm about to throw. We need to do predictions now before I feel bad about how I'm going.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Nongshim BNK. Who you got?
That's very topical. We were just discussing it.
Yep. Be a man of your word, Wolf.
I think I'm going to go Nongshim. Yeah, I actually think I'm going to go Nongshim.
He's a man of his word.
I do think that Clear is like actually really good, and I think Raptor is on his best days amazing. We don't know who the mid laner is going to be just yet, so I'm doing this with limited information. But I think it's going to be Daystar, and I think Daystar is probably the right call. I'm not ready to believe that Nongshim are down and out, and I'm not ready to believe that BNK figured out some of their overextension. So yeah, Nongshim for me.
I think for me, it's just tilt Lehens. It's the Nongshim noodle, right? So when you take the shape of a noodle, right, it kind of looks like a snake, right? It's a little snake. And you know what you do when you kill the snake? You know how you kill snakes? You cut off the head. Who's the head of the team? Captain Lehens. Pop! You cut off the head, you tilt his ass, it's over. And you know what the strongest part of BNK FearX is?
He's
the bot lane. Young. That's right. We're after the young. I did see him in the hallway after his, like the win last week, and I said, "Good job, young," and he laughed. He said, "Thanks." And now I feel like such a jerk. But I think this is the way. BNK's strength, bot lane. Go after the young, tilt him, and he's going to make some weird calls. BNK FearX. So we're split there. Now, time for the second game. KT versus dPlus. What side do you want, Wolf?
I almost want to just predict dPlus because it feels like they're on a strong upswing after their victory over Gen.G. And KT are also like maybe in the wrong headspace because they just got a free win over Bro, and like I'm not even sure if they're human. Like we're like wondering if they're robots and stuff like that right now. Oh, but I think I'm gonna go for KT. I do think that no one will be shocked if KT loses to anyone right now, but like I think I would be lying if I wanted to say that like I'm predicting dPlus if I did for any other reason than like KT will probably just randomly lose a game soon because it just seems like it's time they're due. But like I can't actually predict that way, and I'm gonna predict KT.
So the more I thought about it, see, this is why we took too long to talk about it. I was ready to predict dPlus. I was like, you know what? You know who had a pretty good series? Wolf even shouted it out. Sheezy Weezy, Shiwu on the top side of the map. Perfect's due to just lose his mind and start playing like shit. It's gonna happen. We've all seen it, right? But then I think about
keep rolling those. He can't keep rolling 10 out of 10s every day.
No, he can't. But then I thought about who was I fading the most on dPlus KIA, because I was like, you know, his performances actually haven't been that good against the best mid laner in the league. I worry about ShowMaker against BDD. So like, again, and BDD's used to carrying a bad perfect, but when a good perfect's playing, they're 4-0. They're the best team in the league. So I think I talked myself out of it. I was like, career and Smash, they also are like a coin flipper. I think their highs are probably better than effort and aiming, but it's really in the mid lane. And I've walked it back. I am a KT predictor as well. Damn it. I wanted to do it, Wolf, but maybe I should have gone first. That's okay.
I'm sorry. Well, I think it doesn't matter who goes first on these next two because they're both very simple.
Yeah.
Gen.G and Hot Life Esports on Thursday.
Over Bro and the DN Automotive Supers, respectively.
Smash Bro like the same way KT did, and the Hot Life.
Am I working Thursday? Let's check the schedule. You know, there are times where we do wonder if I got you. I'll look it up. We do wonder: are we going to have a long day at work or a more content-filled day at work? Ah, shit! I'm working all those days. Yeah. Well, that's a short day. Probably. We're predicting a short day there. Then we've got on Friday, Kiwoom versus BNK, Wolf.
BNK. I'm gonna go BNK. I like I said before, I think this is a bit of a like kind of random, not random, but like I can't line up, like I said, Lazy Fuel showing up and then like Rich suddenly plays the game well, and I can expect that to happen again in the future kind of situation. So I'm writing BNK for me right now.
If I had glasses, I'd be like, actually, Mr. Wolf, is that even your name? This is a very important revenge match for Willer, who was benched by BNK FearX for who? Rapta, who is playing like shit, in my opinion. And I've told you how they're going to do it. They're going to gank the top side of the map. And when they do that, they looked good. Rich, Willer, not by much, but definitely better.
I like your reasoning.
Clear Rapta right now.
I like your reasoning. I do think it makes sense.
Please, Lazyfield, just don't fall so far behind against the insane devil that is Diablo where you can't play the game later. Like, please. Like, if that happens, then we're fucked. But I like this angle here. And then Dplus T1, always a good series. Always a good series. Surprise wins by Dplus every now and then.
I want to go Dplus here. Like, I'm serious. I kind of... They won last time. Remember, T1 had really bad draft reads. It got reverse swept.
Lamau. Yep.
Also, pays, like, possible inting angle. I just kind of am worried about Lucid versus Owner. I think Owner, as long as he's having a good day, like, probably he just can, like, fix it, and T1 could win through him. This one's really tough for me, actually. I think I'm gonna boldly trust that after even, like, again, I voted KT, but maybe like Dplus could be coming off a win over KT. Like that, that's not impossible. I'm not saying that I predict that, but it feels like there's too many things going wrong for T1 right now for me to want to tell you guys that I think they'll 2-0 or even win. Actually, you know what? I'm locking in Dplus here. I'm actually doing it. I think Dplus deserve credit. They're riding some momentum right now. I think they'll do it.
So this is
they beat Gen.G, and Gen.G is better than T1 for sure.
I agree. But this is I like your point with Lucid and Owner, but Doran against you, right? That was my reasoning there. I think you could use that, but I don't know. I was listening to you, but I wasn't thinking about my own one here. Do I join you? Am I a joiner?
Sounds like I think I'm at what you're saying about Doran.
Yeah.
I think I'm about to tank. My Preds are already like I'm not. Everyone's tanked, right? In terms of win rate
this
right
week
now,
is tough. This week is tough. But like that's what
I'm ready.
I think we're gonna see this all over the place. Yeah. There aren't ones where you just like checkbox from here on out. I think I'll go 2-1 here. Like prove it to me, Dplus again. Prove it to me that it was a fake. And it feels bad that we have them losing to both telecom teams here, but yeah, prove it.
This is where things get really interesting for me this next matchup because I've been super low on Hanwha, as you guys know. Like I'm like they'll never figure it out, blah blah blah. They can't change their play styles. They kind of figured it out a little bit this last week. I'm not saying that like it's fixed, but it's definitely in a better state than I thought it would be. And Kanavi hasn't changed, but they know how to play through him. And picks like the Kazakhs, I think he can play Neferi if he wants to. Like he can play Lee Sin. We haven't seen that yet, but his Jarvan's insane. Canyon's also struggling, right? Like Canyon's not.
Yep.
He's having some rough early games specifically. I do think Gen.G is the better team, but I think it's a bad matchup for Gen.G. Like I think this is just a moment where they might actually get beaten by just straight up jungle problems that they have. Like their jungler just isn't having a good time, and if they have any drafts where Kanavi has Prio in the bottom lane, he's just gonna eat Canyon's lunch money, man. I think I have to predict Gen.G, but like I don't know actually. You know, this is the part. You know what'll happen to me if I predict Hanwha? Like you know this about me is that I'll be like, shouldn't have trusted them. They didn't improve. Like I'm gonna get in my own head. I'm gonna like double down even more on like Hanwha isn't good if I predict them, and then they just completely just are all on separate pages again, and Gen.G dismantles them because they're a really strong team. Like I think it will do a number on my like understanding of Hanwha if I like predict them and they lose. But maybe it's time to be brave enough to say like that I think that'll happen. You know, like Gen.G on a bit of a like they will be on a momentum swing off after beating Bro, but like does that really get you back into the swing of things? Like, you know, maybe not. Wow, should I just do it? Like, what do you like? I've been picking first every time. You know, like, what are you doing?
You made all my points. Those were my points. I am picking Hanwha here. I am for this week. I'm going with what I've seen. Go with what you've seen. And so for me, like, you know, we have the history fallback one, and I think the T1 dPlus one is pretty close. Go with what you see, but in my eyes, I'm like, all right, I trust Faker a little more than ShowMaker, and I trust Owner more than Lucid. And so for this one, I trust that this matchup will hinge on Kanavi taking control of the game. Like that's what this is, and I think they can do that. Also, Zeka's had quietly a solid start to the year. So I don't think Chovy's going to blast a hole in the mid lane. And so I think with those two things, I go Hanwha here.
Deus has also had some pretty good moments himself. You know, when Hanwha, it feels like weirdly enough, it's like this team just doesn't have an 80 carry. Like, no offense to Guma or anything, but like he's never really been the game saver for them, and he's never. Yeah. I mean, that's just not who he is. So that's some.
Remember when he shifted under the tower as Ezreal against Bro? That was put that back in your brain.
So like for Hanwha, it seems like in those situations where like Kanavi's lead isn't enough to just straight up auto win the game, which has happened a few times. Deus is like, don't worry, I got you. I'll carry the late game. Like, you know, I'll do more damage than Guma. It's fine. I'll have the crazy Gnar engage. It's cool. I got you. He's kind of like an insurance policy for this team. Yeah, you know what? I locked it in. I'm putting Hanwha in. I kind of feel like just matchup wise, Gen.G. I'm telling you guys one more time, like asterisk. I think Gen.G is overall the more well-rounded, better team. But Kanavi's playstyle and his current form is better than Canyon's. I think he will find that hole and he will rip it open. So the next matchup is DNS versus KT, and like the only interesting thing about this is whether KT can make the match more interesting than they did against Bro, where it was very boring, and I was very tired of watching it, and I wanted it to end fast, and it did actually. Thank you, KT.
Yep, I agree. Thanks, KT. All right, let's close it on out. Bro versus Nongshim. Is it time for you to join me on the Bro lever side of things?
Well, I think if I predicted Nongshim against BNK and then predicted Bro to beat Nongshim, that would not make sense.
Okay,
so probably not. But I think that I think that there's an angle for Bro. Like Bro could upset here, especially if Nongshim are coming off of that loss. Bro have shown that they're a pretty resilient team, unless they're playing against KT, in which case they just like rolled over and died, and it was very sad, as we've discussed multiple times.
Yeah,
I do think that like in their loss against Hanwha, it was like arguably the most graceful loss we saw in a dominant like loss out of any team. Like they actually held their own against Hanwha. They found some ins. Like they were pretty smart. If Nongshim play badly, I absolutely see a world where Bro could get, in my mind, an upset. But I'm still going to predict Nongshim here.
Yeah. I got bro. I gotta get him in. I do think that Nongshim are the worst informed team in the league right now. I honestly feel better about the Supers than I do Nongshim. I think they caught a really good strength of schedule, Anivia meta pick kind of thing that got solved real quick. And as a team, their personality is the same. It's, is Lahen's going to break? I will say that Scout has been really good, even in that loss against KT. He had like 9 kills or something like that. He had more kills, more damage than BDD, but it's Lahen's letting the team down. And I think there's an angle there. I mean, you could also say the same thing about the Gunger.
I think you're valid in those angles for bro. I think it's definitely a strong possibility. This next matchup is kind of interesting, but it's QM versus T1.
They don't have the parts good enough to do it. They have the strategy, but not the parts good enough.
I think that the lane weakness in the bottom lane is like, yes, maybe you could play through topside like you were talking about, and get a win on Doran. But Paze and Keria are just going to, they don't even need jungle help to just destroy you. Like, Keria is one of those players where he's like, oh, bad support on the other side. I will play whatever I want, and you'll be 20 CS down. We don't even have to kill you. I don't even need owner's help. Like, you're just going to lose the lane really hard. And Paze he's that kind of guy too, generally speaking. Like, when they have a strong lane matchup on the bottom side, as long as T1 draft for Paze, like, if he ends up getting a Caitlyn and Ezreal, an Ashe Seraphine lane, it's like it's so dunzo for LazyField. He won't survive it. So that's my read. Again, we're assuming LazyField is playing. I think that will continue to be the case. And so I'm going to predict T1 pretty confidently.
Yes, I agree. I think that'll continue to happen until May. When do they have their home ground? May. I'm looking at one more. Is it here? Is it where's KRX? No. May. No, it's not that. When is it? Is it the end of May?
It's May. Is it May 8th? And May 10th, where they play against Gen.G and Hanwha, right?
Oh yeah. Dang, they didn't give them back-to-back days? That's surprising. Because they give T1 back-to-back days during the T1 home ground thing. Yeah, because on April 25th and April 26th, T1 plays Bro on the Saturday and
maybe it's just
on the
because
Sunday.
Of the travel, like they're traveling internationally, so they want more rest time between the games. I mean, for example, we went to Hong Kong and there was no rest day between the lower bracket finals and the finals. But that's what we always do, right? For these, that's just the format in general. So that wasn't like a T1 got special treatment on this one, I think. But I don't know. There might be some other reason we don't know. But yeah, that's back in the first week of May or the end of the first week of May, like between the two, the transition to the second week.
Lock me in with T1 as well. There, the strategy is there. The team talent is not, or if it is, what a great LazyField story it will be. And we'll have that covered for you in next week's episode of Let's Cover Korea. Another good one, Wolf. We just keep, saying it. Maybe this one will be shorter. Nope. There's a lot happening because there's so much newness happening here in the LCK. Everyone at home, tell Wolf in the comments, good luck with his move. He's in the process of moving places. He's
my room
painting.
is like a disaster here. I think next week's episode would be my last episode in this house where I've done, like, we started this show where I had the Junior Green Wings behind me. The Junior Green Wings might be back in the new house. I have not decided how the room layout is going to be. It's going to look better than all the trash I have behind me, right? All these clothes on the floor and everything, because like everything is in getting put in the boxes and all that. But yeah, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be exciting. And also, after I move, I may be in weird places during the recording until I can get my desk set up. So you may see me like at a kitchen table. You may see me at like recording at LoLEsports or something, or at dGon's house. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we're still going to bring you guys the content every week. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch you next episode. Bye-bye.